Kevin Stefanski just surrendered. Everything in the most humiliating capitulation any NFL figure has experienced in modern history. And according to sources who witnessed Arthur Blank's absolute nuclear meltdown that forced Stefanski into submission, what triggered this wasn't just the sabotage allegations. It was the revelation of something far more sinister. Stefanski was allegedly part of a coordinated hostile takeover attempt where a group of consultants and advisors embedded in multiple NFL organizations were secretly working together to manipulate draft boards, inflate or deflate player values, and create artificial markets that would benefit a private investment group that planned to profit from the chaos by betting on draft outcomes and player performances through unregulated offshore gambling platforms. According to sources with direct knowledge of the leaked documents that exposed this scheme, Stefanski wasn't just sabotaging the Falcons for other teams. He was sabotaging them as part of a criminal conspiracy to manipulate the entire NFL draft for financial gain. And when Arthur Blank discovered this on Sunday morning and realized that his organization had been infiltrated by someone who was actively working to destroy the integrity of the sport, Blank went into what sources describe as a rage, so intense that he physically threw furniture and threatened to personally ensure that everyone involved would spend time in federal prison. The hostile takeover plot failed when the leak exposed it, but according to sources, at least 7 other NFL teams were also infiltrated by consultants who were part of this scheme. And the league-wide investigation that's about to unfold is going to be the biggest scandal in NFL history. The Falcons' secret that triggered everything exploded into view on Sunday morning, March 1st, 2026, when Arthur Blank received not just the original anonymous email about Stefanski's sabotage, but a second follow-up email that arrived approximately 2 hours later, containing far more extensive documentation and context about what Stefanski's activities were actually part of. According to sources who've seen both emails and their attachments, the second email explained that Stefanski wasn't acting alone or independently, but was instead one of approximately 15 consultants, advisors, and analysts who had been planted in various NFL organizations over the past 2 years as part of what the email described as a coordinated manipulation scheme designed to create predictable chaos in the draft that could be exploited for gambling purposes. According to sources familiar with the contents of the leaked materials, the hostile takeover terminology comes from the fact that the group behind this scheme, which sources say involves former NFL executives, sports betting professionals, and financial investors, was essentially trying to take control of NFL draft outcomes from the inside by having their embedded operatives influence team decisions in coordinated ways that would create opportunities for profitable betting positions. According to sources, the scheme was sophisticated and involved multiple layers, including manipulating individual team draft boards to ensure certain players would be available at certain picks, creating false narratives about prospects to affect their draft positioning and therefore their contract values, and coordinating timing of when certain information would be leaked to media to create market movements. The specific mechanics of how the alleged scheme worked are complex but devastating, according to sources who've studied the leaked documents. According to sources, the embedded consultants like Stefanski would be given instructions about which prospects to promote and which to disparage within their host organizations. According to sources, these instructions were coordinated across multiple organizations so that specific players would fall to specific draft positions where the betting syndicate had placed large wagers on over-under draft position markets or on which team would select which player. According to sources, the syndicate used offshore gambling platforms that allowed bets on extremely specific draft outcomes. And by manipulating multiple teams' draft boards simultaneously, they could create scenarios where their bets had much higher probability of paying off than bookmakers realized. For example, according to sources who've reviewed the alleged scheme's documentation. If the syndicate wanted Fernando Mendoza to fall to the 10th overall pick because they had large wagers on him being selected between picks 8 to 12, they would have their embedded consultants at teams picking 1 to 9 all give negative evaluations of Mendoza to ensure those teams passed on him. According to sources, this type of coordination across multiple organizations is exactly what Stefanski was allegedly doing when he steered the Falcons away from Mendoza. He was following instructions to ensure Mendoza would still be available for whatever team was picking later where the syndicate's betting position would be optimal. The investment group behind this alleged hostile takeover scheme includes some shocking names according to sources who've seen the leaked documents. According to sources, the group allegedly includes at least 2 former NFL general managers who left the league under unclear circumstances within the past 5 years, several sports betting industry executives from major gambling companies, and according to sources, at least 1 current minority owner of an NFL franchise who has gambling interests that would create massive conflicts of interest if his involvement became public. According to sources, the leaked documents include financial records showing millions of dollars being moved through various shell companies and offshore accounts to fund the placement of the consultants and to place the bets that were supposed to generate profits from the manipulation. Arthur Blank's discovery of the full scope of this scheme on Sunday morning caused what sources describe as the most intense reaction they've ever seen from an NFL owner. According to sources who were in the Falcons facility when Blank arrived after receiving the second email, they heard loud crashes coming from Blank's office, including what sounded like furniture being thrown or kicked. According to sources, Blank immediately summoned Terry Fontenot, the team's head of security, the general counsel, and several board members to emergency meetings where he shared the leaked materials and where he made clear that he viewed this as an existential threat not just to the Falcons but to the entire NFL when Kevin Stefanski arrived for what he thought would be a confrontation about sabotaging the Falcons' draft strategy. According to sources who've been briefed on what happened, he walked into a room where Arthur Blank was flanked by attorneys, security personnel, and according to sources, 2 FBI agents who had been contacted by Blank's security team based on the evidence of potential federal crimes, including wire fraud, conspiracy, and illegal gambling operations. According to sources, Stefanski's face apparently went pale when he saw the FBI agents, and he immediately realized that this situation was far more serious than he'd anticipated. The confrontation that followed, according to sources who've heard detailed accounts from people who were present, was brutal and one-sided. According to sources, Arthur Blank didn't waste time with questions or allowing Stefanski to explain. Blank simply told Stefanski, "You're part of a criminal conspiracy to manipulate the NFL draft. We have documentation. We have financial records. We have communications. And now the FBI has all of it too. You're going to cooperate fully with investigations. You're going to surrender every bit of information you have about who else is involved. And you're going to sign documents admitting your role in this scheme. Or you're going to be criminally charged and you're going to prison. Those are your only options." According to sources, Stefanski's attorney, who was participating via phone, tried to argue that Stefanski shouldn't make any admissions without proper legal counsel and more time to review the allegations. But, according to sources, one of the FBI agents apparently intervened and told Stefanski's attorney that based on the evidence they'd already reviewed, they had probable cause to arrest Stefanski immediately on federal charges. And that the only reason they were giving him an opportunity to cooperate was because Arthur Blank had requested it as a courtesy to avoid the spectacle of an NFL figure being arrested at an NFL facility. Kevin Stefanski's surrender, according to sources, was complete and absolute. according to sources who've seen or been briefed on the documents Stefanski signed. He admitted in writing to being part of a conspiracy to manipulate NFL draft outcomes for gambling purposes. He identified by name approximately 12 other consultants and advisors who he knew were part of the same scheme. He provided account numbers and contact information for the people who recruited him and who gave him instructions. And he agreed to testify fully and truthfully in any criminal or civil proceedings that result from investigations into the conspiracy. According to sources, Stefanski also agreed to forfeit any and all compensation he received from the Falcons or from any other source related to his consulting work, to cooperate with the NFL's own internal investigation, and to never work in any capacity in professional sports again. According to sources, the surrender documents included language making clear that if Stefanski fails to cooperate fully, or if he's found to have lied or withheld information, he'll face immediate federal prosecution with no possibility of a cooperation agreement. The hostile takeover plot that Stefanski was part of ultimately failed because, according to sources, the leak that exposed everything came from someone inside the conspiracy who had second thoughts or who was worried about criminal exposure and who decided that cooperating with authorities was safer than continuing to participate. According to sources, investigators are still trying to determine exactly who leaked the materials to Arthur Blank. But the leading theory is that it was one of the other embedded consultants who realized the scheme was unsustainable and decided to blow it up before they got caught. The league-wide implications of this scandal are staggering, according to sources who understand how widespread the infiltration was. According to sources, based on the information Stefanski and others are providing to investigators, at least 7 other NFL teams had consultants or advisors embedded in their organizations who were part of this scheme. According to sources, those teams include the Cleveland Browns, the New York Giants, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Tennessee Titans, the Carolina Panthers, the Arizona Cardinals, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. According to sources, all of these teams are now conducting internal investigations to determine the extent to which their draft strategies were manipulated and whether any decisions they made were influenced by false information from compromised consultants, the NFL league offices. Response to learning about this hostile takeover plot has been to launch what sources describe as the most comprehensive investigation in league history. According to sources, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell has personally taken charge of coordinating the investigation and has brought in external law enforcement, forensic accounting experts, and cybersecurity specialists to help trace the full extent of the conspiracy. According to sources, Goodell has also reached out to federal gambling regulators and to international law enforcement because the offshore gambling platforms that were allegedly used are based in multiple countries and will require international cooperation to fully investigate. The legal jeopardy facing everyone involved in this scheme is severe, according to sources who've consulted with federal prosecutors about the types of charges that could be brought. According to sources, the primary charges would likely include conspiracy to commit wire fraud because the scheme involved using electronic communications to manipulate financial markets, illegal gambling operation charges because the offshore platforms likely violated U.S. gambling laws, and potentially RICO charges if prosecutors can establish that this was an ongoing criminal enterprise with multiple participants working together over an extended period. The financial losses to NFL teams from this scheme are difficult to quantify, but potentially massive, according to sources who've tried to estimate the damage. According to sources, if teams made draft decisions based on false information from compromised consultants, they might have passed on better players, drafted worse players, and generally built inferior rosters that cost them wins and playoff opportunities worth hundreds of millions of dollars in lost revenue. According to sources, multiple teams are already consulting with attorneys about potential civil lawsuits against the individuals and entities involved in the conspiracy seeking compensation for damages. Arthur Blank's personal commitment to seeing everyone involved prosecuted has been absolute, according to sources who've spoken with him or his representatives. According to sources, Blank has told people that this conspiracy represents an attack on the integrity of the sport he loves and that he will spare no expense or effort to ensure that everyone responsible faces maximum consequences. According to sources, Blank has already committed millions of dollars of his personal money to funding additional investigative work beyond what the league or law enforcement are doing. And he's been personally calling other NFL owners to urge them to take this threat seriously and to cooperate fully with investigations. The impact on the 2026 NFL draft from this scandal is uncertain but significant, according to sources who understand draft dynamics. According to sources, with multiple teams now unsure about whether their draft boards were manipulated and with consultants being purged from organizations across the league, teams are scrambling to redo evaluations using only internal staff that they're confident weren't compromised. According to sources, this is creating delays and uncertainty that could affect which players teams target and how the draft unfolds. The gambling industry's response to learning about this alleged manipulation scheme has been concern and cooperation, according to sources familiar with discussions between gambling companies and regulators. According to sources, major sports betting companies that offer legal markets on draft outcomes are now reviewing their betting patterns from recent years to determine whether there were suspicious betting activities that might indicate this scheme was operational. According to sources, several companies have already identified unusual betting patterns that they're sharing with investigators, including large bets on very specific draft position outcomes that paid off at rates that seem statistically unlikely without inside information as of now. Sunday evening, March 1st, 2026. Kevin Stefanski has completely surrendered and is cooperating with a massive investigation into a hostile takeover plot where consultants embedded in multiple NFL teams were allegedly manipulating draft outcomes for gambling profits. Arthur Blank's explosive reaction to discovering this scheme has set off a league-wide crisis as 7 other teams discover they were also infiltrated. The FBI is involved. Federal charges are likely. And this could become the biggest scandal in NFL history, making Deflategate and Spygate look like minor infractions by comparison. The full scope of the conspiracy is still being uncovered. But what's already clear is that the integrity of the NFL draft was under systematic attack, and that only a leak from someone inside the conspiracy prevented it from continuing indefinitely.